Hi guys, Happy New Year. I hope everyone's doing okay. Just wanted to come on briefly as a reminder of everyone as you pushed out sort of exercise. Okay, what I want us all to remember, it was just basically what it was someone asked a question in one of the Neville groups, and so I thought I would share my answer this way. And the question was, I don't know how not to get caught up in an argument. Like, I recently had an argument with a friend. I know everyone has me pushed out. I know all of this, but somehow I can't let this go. I get lost in what happened and that sort of thing. Okay. What I want us to understand every time you have an argument or a disagreement with someone or anything along those lines is this: you are always only looking at yourself, your story made real, period. Okay? And the reason that's so important is because when you truly understand non-duality, when you truly understand everyone as you pushed out, when you truly understand that the only thing on display is your inner conversation actualized, there's no room for guilt. There's no room for guilt. So let me explain this, all right? I want you guys to think of it this way. The ego has one end game: to separate you from yourself. Okay? It enjoys the fact that you don't know that your consciousness is on display, and therefore it feeds you a story, and then the story determines how and what you see. But the ego's end game at the end of the day is separate, cause divide, make you blame external circumstance, make you see someone separate other than yourself, and that's what's on display. Okay? So when you know this, there is zero room for condemnation. I'm not saying we don't forget. We can forget in the moment. We can do the automaton thing and respond and react accordingly on autopilot, because we do. Or we can stop the trajectory right away and recognize our thoughts on display and really look at what it's trying to teach us. So today's tip of the day is treat everyone as if you were looking in the mirror. And instead of judging what you're hearing or being told or what you're seeing, simply try to avoid the inner conversation that is trying to give you some kind of, way to argue with yourself or separate yourself. Stop doing all that. Pay attention to what the other body is saying, because you need to understand that not one single body outside of you isn't you. It's always you, with you, with you, with you, with you, with you. There is no one else. There is no one else. It's your consciousness on display, and we're all playing these roles on autopilot. So the reason I say that is, when you understand that, do you realize the futility of getting upset? Do you realize the futility of getting angry? Do you realize that it's the equivalent of chasing our own tail if we were a dog, or yelling in a mirror? There's 0 point to this, okay? But it's required for us to take responsibility and understand. The minute we stop projecting guilt, we stopped being on the receiving end of our quote unquote enemies. All right. But that is totally 100% in your control. And that's what I want to remind you guys of. There is never a moment that you're not looking in the mirror. There is never a moment that it's not your story on display. And I promise you, the hardest thing about this is that you guys are unconscious about it. Your unconscious is what's on display outside of you. That's the most important thing to remember. Your unconscious is what's on display outside of you. Okay? Now, as a projector, as the source of the unconscious, you can use the outside mirror to see what is going on in your head. without judgment, without reproach, without guilt, you can then see what to do about it. Because in that moment, you are being asked to love your reflection and how to deal with yourself and yourself alone, even though it appears to be another body. Okay? That's the most important thing you will ever learn from me, is how to eliminate the division, because it is important to recognize yourself as the source of your reality, because anytime that you don't, you will fall victim to your imagination. You will fall victim to the ego's game. The ego's game is to divide and conquer, to say that person out there is doing this and you're innocent. Okay? The trouble with that is, since nothing exists outside of us, what are we doing except projecting guilt onto the illusion of someone else in order for us to have someone to blame? It's convenient. It's a great game, but we're not playing the ego's game anymore. We're recognizing ourselves in every human being. The bottom line is this: God's kingdom is one. It's one. And the minute you separate even one human being, even just one, you just say, okay, all right, I'll accept everybody's me except this one person, right? We all have that one, right? Okay. As long as you do that, you're locked out. You're locked out. There is a world that allows you to see beyond the illusion of yourself. You want to become the intelligence behind the veil, not victim of the veil, okay? So you can't exclude anyone. Everything is you, and you are being shown inside your head. And you use this body to interact in this game. But at the end of the day, the object of the game of life, is learn to love yourself, teach others how to love you, because those others are you, and no guilt projections anywhere, because if it's a disagreement, you are disagreeing only with yourself, and you are supposed to learn from your story, and that's it. And if you can do that without reproach, without getting angry, that's the hard part, right? Without getting angry. But if you can do that without getting angry, you will recognize yourself. The object of the game is, do I recognize myself in the external world as the source of my reflection? That's the object of the game. And the more you do it, the more you do it, the more you do it, the more unified you become. And suddenly you see through the whole thing, and you realize just how perfect the world actually is, and it's not subject to your story at all. Well, it is subject to your story, but you're aware of your story, so now your story changes, and the world outside of you changes. And that's something that you can only prove through experience. You can only prove it that way. There's no other way, and that's why it seems so impossible for people, because they don't understand that the world out there isn't actually anything else than other than than what's inside of us, and that's it. It is a confession of your character. And so, in order to stop a disagreement, in order to stop these things, it's important to recognize everyone is you. I cannot emphasize that enough. Because you realize if you know everything is you, you're going to show up different. I don't care if someone's arguing with you on this side of the house. If you know that you're arguing with yourself, you're going to respond differently every single time. If you don't know you're arguing with yourself, you will get sucked into the drama, respond to the drama, and go on autopilot into this scenario. And then what happened? You just became a victim to your story and your imagination, and you're not in control, and you get to play in the 3D box. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's experience. But if you understand what the experience is for, and how to control it, and how to come in and out of boxes, and how not to get in arguments, and how to get along with everybody because you know it's you, it's very different. A lot of people don't take self-love to this degree. Self-love is a love for your entire being. Entire being means everyone you see outside of you, still you, and you. It's one whole being. Okay? So it's not enough to go pamper your nails, get your hair done, and be kind to just you, because just you doesn't actually even exist. All right. You're projecting your consciousness and that's it. It's imaginary. It may be a mystery, it may be wonderful, but at the end of the day, you don't even exist. Self-love is about the whole picture. In recognizing you're the whole universe, you move as a universe, and it's a very different scenario. You show up differently, you interact differently, you have less triggers, all of these things, but at the end of the day, that's my biggest takeaway that I can ever give you guys. You let go of the argument because you are holding yourself prisoner. Although it looks like another body, you're holding yourself prisoner to that, and that serves no one. If that makes sense? It serves no one. Just like when they say forgiveness is for you and it's not for someone else. And most people are like, what are you talking about? I feel like I have to do something for that person, or, it feels like a sacrifice. Well, it's not. Forgiveness is about letting it go, because first, real forgiveness. I don't mean human forgiveness. I mean real divine forgiveness. Okay, so what is real divine forgiveness? It's the recognition that your story is on display and that people are innocently playing the role that you have created. Therefore, if you didn't know you were doing it, the other person doesn't know that they're doing it, and therefore everyone is innocent. That's real forgiveness. That's real forgiveness. If you recognize yourself as creator, you treat it that way, and rather than get upset or feel victim, you remain as creator in control of your situation. That's my tip, you guys. I hope this helps. I hope you can think of it this way. And remember, at the end of the day, if you can remember above all else, the only thing on display is your story, and all people out there are only your brain on display in your stories, and that you get to see yourself and everything that you're thinking, and know that everyone is innocent, because that's just as important. Know that everyone is innocent. Then you are bypassing the drama. And everybody wants to live a drama-free life, right? You bypass the drama because the forgiveness lesson isn't necessary. But I promise you this, should you not forgive, should you not let go, should you hold on to resentment, all right? Remember that you're the projector. So if you've held on to resentment, if you've held on to these things, okay, and you think that you've let it go because you're not thinking about it, I'm going to tell you right now that it goes into your subconscious, and then your subconscious projects it out there, and then you judge it, which is a judgment against self. So you never escape it. Forgiveness is about you and you alone, because you want to realize that true forgiveness, not forgiveness, okay, I'll forgive you this time, because to do it the way humans do it would be to acknowledge that there was something wrong in the first place, when at the end of the day they only followed orders, yours. And I know this is hard to believe for some of you. I realize it, because this mortal life sounds, looks, and feels as real as it's gonna get. But remember, in the dream, when you're dreaming and you're actually in the dream, doesn't it sound as real as it's gonna get? Doesn't it feel as real as it's gonna get? Until you wake up, you don't know that you're dreaming. Waking life is exactly the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. So when dealing with these type of emotions, you have to understand that these are the only thing on display. Same thing with fear, same thing with resentment or unforgiveness or these arguments. If you cannot let these things go, you are holding yourself prisoner, and then that's what gets projected out. And now the people outside of you look as if they're guilty of something. And remember, that's the ego's game. The ego wants you to blame out there, because as long as you don't know that you're blaming yourself, and it looks like we're blaming someone else, we're playing into the ego's game. And that's not what we want to do. We want to render the ego useless. Okay? That's not to say that you don't get to enjoy being your identity, But when you truly, truly, truly understand everyone as you pushed out, when you have really, truly mastered your consciousness on display, when you do not fall for the ego's games and identity, you end up with a super identity, which means it's you plus the whole universe that is you moving as one whole thing, versus the opposite of that is you think it's just you. So the ego will keep you trapped in just you world. Okay? This is very esoteric, all the stuff that I'm telling you, but it's still true. Okay? And if you render the ego useless, you end up with an identity far beyond any notion that you can ever consider yourself being. Because in that moment, you will realize that you are God. And that everything in scripture is telling the truth. And that everything in the world is made in your image. You will realize a totally different existence, an all-powerful and omniscient existence. Someone that is not subject to the world, someone who's not enslaved to their story. It's a huge, huge bonus add to your identity. But you sacrifice your small identity in the process. Okay? And if you can think along those lines in that way, you'll understand that you're not giving anything up. But the true forgiveness is required, and to also understand that everything in the world is made in your image. Whether you realize it or not, the only thing on display is your mind, your consciousness. Use people like mirrors to see inside yourself, because the outside world is your unconscious on display. And that's it. Okay? I said that like 5 times at least, I think. I'm saying it on purpose. I can't say it enough. This is the way that you release yourself from triggers. This is the way that you release yourself from all arguments. This is the way you let go until you can see your consciousness on display, because the object of the game is to see yourself in every human being. That's the goal. If you can remember that, you're going to be good. I promise. If you can't, you will fall victim to the drama, and you'll fall asleep and you'll play the character on autopilot anyway. Just like you do in the dream. But what I'm asking you guys to do, I'm giving you a choice to wake up now and see beyond your identity. See beyond your identity into your whole identity. It's a totally different world. It's God's kingdom. It exists within the world. It exists within all of our worlds. It's the only constant in a sea of illusion. We each got our own illusion, or our own projection, okay? But there's a source light that is everything at once, that is true for everyone. And the only way to get into this world is to understand that you are everything at once. I mean, really get it. Not just say you get it and then ask for advice on how to deal with your friend. Because if you understood that, then you would know that your friend doesn't exist outside of you, and that it's you with you. And so you wouldn't be asking how to deal with your friend. You would be getting your mind right within first. And then seeing the people outside change, because your perception changed, because your idea of what you think you're seeing is changed. Okay? I give this example. I gave this example in class. This is the last thing I'm going to say. I'm going to leave you guys with food for thought on this, okay? Remember the caveman, okay? If your eyeballs are like little flashlights and they're only able to see what's in front of them in a darkened room, okay? And you walk into a cave and you see a caveman and he's wielding some kind of weapon and he's screaming and he's yelling and he looks like an extreme savage and he looks like he's coming to attack you. In that split second, you're going to say, that's a savage. Oh, look at that savage. In that moment. Okay, that's what your eyeballs flashlight allowed you to see in that split second. So, sorry, in your judgment, that's what we would see. Okay? All right. If we expanded, if we did not judge the moment and we expanded, say our eyes got adjusted to the cave. All right? Suddenly our eyes can see in the dark better. Now we're able to see more than the caveman. Okay? Now, our eyes adjusted to the dark, and what we're seeing outside is a family man who's protecting his family from a saber-toothed tiger. And he was being savage looking because he was trying to scare the tiger away. which is a common sense thing. Now, it's the same image. It's the same thing, but suddenly your expanded vision is able to define this man totally different, because now you have 100% sympathy, and you're not just seeing a savage, you're seeing a family man trying to protect his family. Well, isn't it the same man? But in short-sightedness, when we don't know that everything is us, it's so easy to say that's a savage. And the expanded view would be, in this case, the analogy of your eyes adjusting to the dark and being able to see the savage in a totally different light. So you don't exactly, you see it differently, even though it's the same image. That's exactly the analogy I'm asking you guys to apply now. Okay? If you know everything is you, there is no one to blame, and it's your story that needs fixing, because they can only appear as you are inside. And so the only thing to fix, if you really want to, is to pay attention to what's going on outside of you, because it's showing you inside and inside alone. That's your goal. Expand your view. Understand the caveman isn't just a savage any more than you are just your body. You are everything outside of you. Expand your view and know what you are. Okay? That's my tip. That's my tip, you guys. I hope this helps. I don't want to talk forever. I don't want to bore you guys. I know I say the same things over and over again, but I have to, because everybody is coming to this level of awareness. Everybody will soon discover that they're the universe. Everyone wants out of their problems, of their drama, of their whatever story they've created. Everybody wants out of certain situations because they're tired of doing things a certain way. Well, the only way out is to change your thinking, because your thinking is responsible for what's outside of you. That's it. Okay? Your thinking and your emotions are responsible for what's outside of you. Okay? As soon as you emotionally attach to a thought, you now gave it power to exist outside of you in a certain way on autopilot. But those two things are responsible for how you see. All right? Hope that helps. Think about what I'm saying. And again, the only way out of any situation is to take radical responsibility for it. As soon as you do, the world changes. You know, the other option is to stay stuck. And personally, I don't think anybody wants to be stuck. So, all right. Love you guys, and hope that helps. I may be traveling a little bit, not sure. So I apologize for my being in and out of my lives, but I hope this helps today, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.